Welcome back to our channel 217 Prince YT. Back in Jin Woo's vision, he saw portals opening up as an army came out from them. He recognized them as the clans of Ricardo, Pydos, Roken, Ince Ras, and Raider that Essel belonged to. As the army was marching towards the Shadow Monarch, Jin Woo noticed a gigantic wolf alongside the army, and they all stopped in front of the Shadow Monarch before the final battle began. The scene shifts back to the hunters in the double dungeon, where they are trying to defend themselves against the architect and his soldiers. Choi instructs the hunters to use everything they've got and to move the wounded to the back. The architect tells them that by the time his puppets collapse, anyone who is alive will have the great honor of witnessing the king's birth, that is, if any one of them survives. Seeing the Colossus soldier charging for an attack, Choi instructs everyone to take cover. As the creature uses its attack, Choi manages to dodge it and counterattacks with a fireball straight to the creature's face. He orders the other hunters present in the room to use this chance to destroy the stone statues. Hearing that, Woo prepares to strike and lands a punch straight on the creature's face. But as he looks at the soldier, he is surprised to see that it had no effect on it. All of a sudden, Choi hits the thing with a fireball on its face. He tells them that these guys have high resistance to physical attacks, but as he looks at the monster, he is surprised to see that his attack had no effect on the creature. The rest of the guild members tell Choi that none of their skills are working on these creatures. Choi thinks they are out of options, so they need to wake Jin Woo up, thinking that he is hypnotized. He throws a fireball towards him, saying this is the only way to wake him up right now. But before the ball reaches Jin Woo, the architect blocks it with his body and springs towards Choi, saying, "How dare you try to disturb the king in his slumber?" Seeing the creature, Choi is stunned and is unable to move, thinking it is over for him. Woo, along with some other hunters, stops the creature in its path. Woo instructs Hunter Cha that they will take care of things here, so please go wake Hunter Jin Woo up. Jin Woo, still in the vision, witnesses the battle between all of the demon clans and the Shadow Army. He thinks the shadows keep regenerating no matter how many times they get destroyed. If those had been my soldiers, I would have run out of mana a while ago. It's like he has a bottomless pit full of mana. Seeing them fight, Jin Woo wonders if the Shadow Monarch isn't on the same side as the monsters, or maybe there is an internal conflict. After the battle is over, the battlefield falls silent, filled with the bodies of the defeated soldiers. The Shadow Monarch starts to approach the defeated leader of the demon clans. He asks him, "We had a chance to end this war today, so why did you betray me?" The creature replies, "It's too bad. I was unable to get rid of you." Furious, the Shadow Monarch asks him once again, "Why did you betray me?" The creature starts to say something in a demonic language. Hearing that, the Shadow Monarch gets angry and picks him up by his mouth, crushing his face with his bare hands. But that wasn't enough to take out the creature. The Shadow Monarch looks into the creature's eyes and realizes something. He thinks, "Where have I seen them?" He lets go of the monster, and it falls to its knees. The monarch removed its helmet, and underneath was the Demon King Baron. Seeing this, the monarch starts to wonder what Baron is doing here. He starts to look at his hands, not understanding what is going on, and we see it was Jin Woo all along. He was the one who fought against the Silver Soldiers and the Demon Clans. He thinks, "Why didn't I notice until now?" He notices something on his chest and can hear a heartbeat on the other side. We see that Jin Woo has two hearts inside his body, a normal human heart and a black heart. After that, he senses something behind him. As he turns around, he sees Silver Soldiers descending from the sky, and a notification shows up saying the playback of the retrieved data has ended. Inside the double dungeon, the architect is telling Hunter Cha, "You are quite interesting, aren't you?" He asks her to go beyond his designs just a little more. Cha prepares to attack using her ability, Sword Dance, and as she strikes, the creature blocks it effortlessly and counterattacks, injuring her shoulder in the process. As she screams in pain, the creature asks them if that is enough, explaining that the dungeon system predicts and responds to any outcome, and their weapons won't work against the statues. As he explains, he gets hit in the face. It was Hunter Choi, who was telling the hunters to wake Jin Woo up, as there was no other way. Seeing an opening, Cha starts to run towards Jin Woo, but as she looks back, she sees the entity behind her who is about to grab her. She manages to get out of the way just in time. As the creature looks at Cha, he notices a shadow on her shoulder. He asks Hunter Cha what her relationship with Jin Woo is, and she tells him, "We are friends," saying, "I am here to save him." Hearing that, the creature tells her, "In that case, I will give you a chance. Today is the day for one of the greatest monarchs of this world to come out. I will give you the chance to watch the glorious scene, but all of the other humans in the room will die." The creature hears a voice asking, "Who said that?" and gets punched in the face by Jin Woo, shattering his mouth into pieces. As the creature falls to the ground, Jin Woo asks him, "What have you done to my body?" Seeing Jin Woo, all the hunters give a sigh of relief, thinking that now Jin Woo is here, so they are saved. Meanwhile, Jin Woo is crushing the creature's face under his foot. It asks Jin Woo, "You are not the king. How come you're not the king?" And asks, "How can you control yourself after receiving a black heart?" After hearing that, Jin Woo understands that the power he was feeling was coming from the black heart. He sees a notification telling him his mana increased by 100,000. Looking at the creature, Jin Woo thinks, from his reaction, "I can be sure of two things. He didn't expect this to happen, and the black heart isn't meant to benefit me, and all the data I recovered wasn't an answer." He asks the architect, "You mentioned that you were against choosing me as a player. What was the point of choosing someone? What were you trying to do to me?" Instead of answering him, the thing shouts, "Shadow Monarch, you have got us. Do you think that the other monarchs will stand still after what you have done?" Jin Woo, bringing out his daggers, asks him to just answer the question. Meanwhile, the other hunters are freaking out, seeing something. They see all the statues that were standing still had also come to life. The architect tells Jin Woo that if he kills him, no one will be able to stop his dolls, and asks if he still wants to kill him. Jin Woo, furious, asks, "What if I kill you and take care of the dolls?" The architect tells Jin Woo that if he kills him, the system will also die off. Jin Woo, seeing through his bluff with a smirk on his face, tells him, "There is a possibility that I could go back as an E-class hunter." He explains that he has been thinking about that as well. Just because the system's designer disappears doesn't mean that the system will be destroyed. As the architect tries to access the system, he is unable to, as notifications start to pop up stating "access denied" over and over again. Unable to understand what is going on, he looks toward Jin Woo, who tells him, "I'm going to kill the system. I will swallow it up." The architect, not accepting what was going on, says, "Maybe there was a glitch in the system," and screams at Jin Woo in frustration. But Jin Woo slices him into pieces using his daggers. As the pieces of the architect start to fall towards the ground, in his last moments he tells Jin Woo a prophecy. When the pillars of fire that hold the heavens are raised, there will be an inevitable death approaching your way. Meanwhile, the association members outside the dungeon are waiting for the hunters to return. They say that it has been an hour since the members of the Hunter Guild went in and wonder what is going on. They see the hunters coming out, and looking at their condition, they think that the elites of the Hunter Guild all ended up like that. Just what happened in the C-rank gate. In the back, Jin Woo is also coming out, thinking the system architect is now gone, and I still don't have all the answers to my questions. After they are out, Woo tells Jin Woo that around 20 of the top-ranked elite hunters died. If this was a dungeon break, the extent of the damage would be unimaginable. He asks Jin Woo how he knew the double dungeon was in this particular gate. Jin Woo tells him the dungeon summoned him here, explaining he received a message telling him to come here. Woo asks if they can see that message, but Jin Woo tells him that it's a message only visible in his head. Hearing that, Woo thinks it doesn't seem like he's joking, especially since there are casualties. Hunter Cha also comes to check up on Jin Woo and asks how he is doing. Jin Woo tells her he is fine, but starts to fall to the ground. Seeing this, everyone present in the place starts to panic and run towards Jin Woo. The story shifts to Japan, where trucks filled with mana crystals are making their way towards the S-rank gate. Seeing that, Hunter Yuri comments, 200,000 tons of mana crystals. These would be enough to fuel up the magic power of the magic circle. He starts to create a force field around the gate, saying now the magic circle will gather its own magic power from the crystals. After doing that, he notices something, and the man behind him asks if everything is okay. He tells the man the barrier is perfect, but he can feel the presence of someone around this area. He asks the person for their identity and tells them to show themselves, but there is no answer. The man asks him what man would be courageous enough to stay on the streets where a dungeon break might occur at any moment, and Yuri tells him, "I never said it was a person." We see the same man from before standing on top of a building, observing everything, saying he has some pretty good senses, and considering where his strength is coming from, there's nothing strange about that. Besides, it is finally beginning. Everything is flowing according to the predetermined tragedy. As the army starts to surround the area, Kene asks Sugimoto, "The modern firearms have no significant effect on the monsters, so what is the point of drawing the military?" Sugimoto explains that if Yuri Orlov fails, they'll have to stall some time for the first line of hunters to prepare for an attack. Hearing that, Kene says, "So they are basically just cannon fodder," and Sugimoto tells her, "We are not so different as long as we are in the front." Meanwhile, Yuri Orlov was inspecting the site. He comments that if this goes well, he could take care of the S-rank gate alone, adding, "I would prefer to be called the man who cleared the S-rank gate alone. But sadly, there is a hunter that's more suitable for that expression, so he shouldn't hope much." He opens up a bottle, preparing to drink, and the man behind him tells him that might not be a good idea. Yuri tells him it's a toast to calm his nerves. He'll show him the best show he's ever seen. As he starts drinking, he asks how many S-rank hunters are on standby. The man informs him a total of 15. Hearing that, Yuri tells him, "A little less audience for my show." He asks about the United States and why they didn't send S-rank hunters to Japan for backup. The man tells him there was a new S-rank gate on the east side of Maryland state. More S-rank gates appeared in England and India. As they were talking, the gate started to break, and we saw Jin Woo, who had woken up in the hospital. He sits up and sees Jinho, who was there to visit him. Jin Woo asks him what happened, and Jinho starts crying, explaining that he has been asleep for 3 days. Hearing that, Jin Woo thinks about the S-rank gate that appeared in Japan and asks Jinho what happened to it. The scene shifts to the day the dungeon break occurred in Japan, and giants came out of the gate. These were the top-tier A-rank gate bosses, and there was a horde of them. Seeing them, Hunter Yuri was confident that he would be able to stop them using his barrier. Using the mana from the magic crystals, he created a powerful barrier around the gate. The creatures tried to break out, but the barrier was too powerful. Seeing this, Yuri smiled, saying, "A monster that is found in a mere A-rank gate can't possibly go through this barrier." But all of a sudden, his confidence turned into horror as he saw a gigantic monster approaching the barrier, and with one swing of its weapon, the creature managed to slice its way through the barrier. The story shifts to the present, where Jinho was explaining everything to Jin Woo about all the recent incidents that occurred while he was unconscious. Meanwhile, his father, Yumi Young-han, woke up from his sleep in his office. He asks his secretary how long he has been asleep. The man tells him 23 hours. They were ready to take him to the hospital if he didn't wake up after 24 hours, just as he ordered. He hands him some documents containing information on the person who was cured of eternal slumber. The man tells him the patient is apparently Hunter Jinwoo's mother. Hearing that, Yu Myung-han thinks maybe Jin Woo has the ability to cure eternal slumber. His secretary tells him that there is someone there to meet him. As the woman enters the room, looking at his condition, she asks how long he has been like this. Back in Japan, we see the events of the dungeon break and how Hunter Yuri was devoured whole by one of the giants. The military tried to stop the creatures, but it was no use, as their weapons had no effect on the demons from an S-rank gate. Seeing everything, Sugimoto orders the remaining S-rank hunters to stop the creatures from advancing, and all of them charged toward the monsters. They tried to blind the giants by attacking their eyes, but the monsters were too fast, and they easily dodged them. Kane, in disbelief, thinks, "How can it be so fast with that size?" We see Jin Woo, who was watching all the footage from that day in his room. He thinks, at this rate, just like the Jeju Island raid, the whole of Asia could be in danger, and thinks about leaving for Japan to take care of the dungeon break. But from the back, he hears a voice telling him not to go. It was his sister. He asks her what she means, and she tells him, "You are about to leave." Jinhoo tells her he's not going anywhere. He's been working too much lately, so he's planning to rest for a while and tells her not to worry. After some time, he is sitting outside in the park. He summons Baru, and asks him about the condition of his sister. Baru tells him there is nothing odd with her behavior, and Jin Woo thinks she must have developed a trauma. She has never once stopped him from going, except for his first raid 4 years ago, and wonders what he should do. As he was walking, he is stopped by a car. Fast forward, we see him sitting in the office of Eugene Guild as CEO Yu Myung-han greets him and introduces himself to Jin Woo. He puts a blank check in front of Jin Woo, saying, "I'm not an arrogant person who believes money can buy anything, especially if the person I'm talking to is an S-rank hunter, so I'd be grateful if you would consider this as my token of sincerity." Seeing this, Jin Woo thinks whatever he is going to say must be confidential. It's not something like a guild invitation, and asks, "What do you want to buy from me?" The man tells him that he suffers from the same illness your mother has. Jin Woo asks if Jin Ho was aware of this, and the CEO tells him, "Excluding my physician, only 3 people know about this." He explains that while searching for a cure everywhere, he found the only person in this world who has ever recovered from this illness, and he doesn't think it's a coincidence that the patient happens to be your mother, and requests Jin Woo to help him. He will never forget his kindness. Hearing that, Jin Woo thinks about his sister, who also needs the potion to recover from her trauma. Fast forward to Japan, where some reporters were flying over the destroyed city of Japan and documenting the events. One of them shows concern, asking what will happen if the creatures decide to attack them, and someone tells him they are safe as long as they keep their distance. It's been confirmed by multiple researchers, so it's trustworthy. They look towards the leader of the giants and comment that the large one among them is the only one guarding the gate, while the other giants are scattered everywhere. It's either waiting for someone or defending the gate. They say that only 2 of the 30 giants have been terminated in 2 days, and if they are not stopped in time, the whole world might get destroyed. Back in Jinwoo's office, Jin Ho was shocked to hear that Jin Woo was planning on going to Japan. He tries to stop him by saying it's different from Jeju Island. Monsters of his size are abnormal. Jin Woo tells him that if he succeeds, the name of the Ajin Guild will be recognized by the whole world. While thinking even Jin Ho, who always trusted him, is worrying about this, Jin Ho agrees on the condition that they both go to Japan together. He asks him if he noticed the Red Gate incident, the Jeju Island raid, and the Double Air incident that happened recently. They all had something similar between them. Bringing out the news articles of these incidents, he tells Jin Woo that he's not in any of it. The only thing he can boast about is staying by his side. "It's embarrassing for me to say this, but you are my only source of pride." Hearing that, Jin Woo says, "I don't think that's something you'd expect from a millionaire's son." He tells Jin Woo that he trusts him, so if it's safe for him, it will be safe for him as well. Hearing that, Jin Woo gets up and starts to leave, saying, "I was just joking. Why would I go to Japan at this time?" and asks him to go back home. While walking, he thinks about the double dungeon and the architect, thinking he is around the same level as him. That means there are still many more that exceed him. It's a big world we live in, and there will be plenty of people stronger than him. After arriving home, he is greeted by his mother. While eating, he asks about his sister. His mother tells him she said she wasn't hungry. Hearing that, he thinks about Jinho's father, and how he told him that he can't help him with his illness. He thinks he's Jinho's father, but he doesn't know what kind of person he is or if he really suffers from that illness. The remaining holy water of life is limited, so he has to use it wisely. After he was done eating, he tells his mother he would be going out for a while, thinking there were still plenty of people that are stronger than him. Even so, as long as his growth doesn't stop, he has to be on the battleground to become stronger. Before leaving, he goes to see his sister in her room. He tells her, "We need to talk." He sits next to her, thinking, "Where do I even start?" He tells her that he almost died recently and turns towards her, seeing no reaction. He tells her he is always in such situations, but this time was different. He really thought he was going to die. He explains, "I made it out alive. I am grateful for all those times I came back home alive," and pats her head, comforting her that this time he will come back too. He thanks her for stopping him from going this time. With tears in her eyes, she tells him, "You would have left anyway." Jinwoo tells her, "Yes, and I'll be back," and assures her not to worry, as he will protect her no matter the distance. Fast forward, we see Chairman Go-gun in the middle of a press conference regarding the recent dungeon break in Japan, as Jinwoo has decided to leave for Japan and take care of the S-rank gate, the airport. As Jin Woo was leaving, he noticed something. Despite his efforts to stop Jin Ho, he still managed to follow him. Seeing no other way, Jin Woo had no choice but to give in to his request, and they both started to make their way towards the plane. The story shifts to Japan, where the military was trying to rescue the survivors from the disaster. The military is telling the people that they only have space for 3 or 4 more people, and tells the civilians that there is no time to be concerned with those who can die at any moment, as the giants are coming this way. If they remain here, all of them will end up dead. He tells the people that they need to find cover, but as he looks up, he sees giants that have already found their location. The soldiers start to shoot the monsters, but their weapons are not effective against them. As one of the giants starts to reach towards the survivors, a giant trident hits it on the chest, launching it a couple of blocks away. As the lifeless body of the giant lies in the rubble, the soldiers wonder what just happened. As they look to the side, they see another monster that is protecting them from the giants, and a man approaches them, telling them to evacuate immediately, as this place is no longer safe. It was Jin Woo and Jin Ho who had arrived in Japan. Jin Ho tells Jin Woo that he will stand by and help the survivors escape. Hearing that, Jin Woo prepares to take out all the monsters present in the area. Alongside Jima, he charges at the creatures. The giants were no match against the strength of Jima, and it took out multiple enemies without any issue. Seeing this, Jin Woo also jumped into the fight and sliced one of the giants in 2 with just one swing of his dagger. The story shifts to the Scavenger Guild in the United States, where some hunters are talking about Jin Woo and how he was fighting against the giants in Japan. One of them comments that Lady Selner didn't upgrade his powers. Hearing that, the second man says he will die with that level. Even though he reawakened, there are limits to a hunter's power. He asks if they are putting insects and giants on the same level, saying hunters who are overconfident in their power will die. They start to bet on how long he will survive this raid. As they were doing that, they heard a voice from the back asking them if that was what they really thought. It is Thomas Andre, who tells the men that he can bet the Scavenger Guild building that Jin Woo will survive this raid. He tells the men to be more concerned with the S-rank gate that appeared in their territory, as the dungeon break is tomorrow, and asks how many of them they think will survive the battle. Looking out the window, he says, "Maybe I would have had more fun in Japan, but tomorrow this place would be fun in its own way." Meanwhile, in Japan, reports were documenting the live scene of the city where the giants were being dealt with by Hunter Jin Woo's summons. They saw a giant that was screaming in pain as it was being devoured alive by ants. Another giant was after a child. The girl cried and ran for her life as the monster was about to catch her. Suddenly, a shadow appeared and chopped off its hand as the creature screamed in pain. We see it was Igor who managed to save the child. As the monster was distracted by that, it failed to notice Iron, who was coming straight towards him. With a powerful blow to the monster's head, he defeats the creature. The force of the attack was so high that it almost buried the giant in the ground, and he stood on top of the defeated giant's corpse. Seeing this, Igor sighs in disbelief, thinking he is so stupid. Meanwhile, Jin Woo was observing everything from a distance and, seeing Iron, commented, "Iron is excited, now that he is upgraded. It's a relief that he is doing a good job." As he was standing there, a soldier came from the back and thanked Jin Woo for his help. Jin Woo, not knowing Japanese, gives him a thumbs up, saying, "You good, brave soldier?" He asks Jin Ho to take him and finish up the evacuation. After everyone leaves, he looks at the dead giant in front of him and, using his shadow extraction, prepares to add it to his army. Chapter end here. For more, like, share, and subscribe.